Let me first introduce the members of the panel. At my extreme left is Dr. Ginter, who's the Secretary General of the IOI, who is in transit on his way to Bonaire at the conference, and who will touch on international relations. Secondly, in the center is Dr. Neil Ardern, Ombudsman of St. Martin. And lastly, I'm the Secretary General of the Borough Ombudsman. The agenda for today is as follows. First, the Ombudsman will touch on the 2016 year report that we recently released. Secondly, she will touch on the private entities with the public authority, which are commonly known as ZBOs. Thirdly, the 9th Caribbean Ombudsman Association Biennial Conference, the Caribbean Conference, that is being held on Bonaire during the course of next week. And lastly, as I mentioned, Dr. Kreitel will touch on the international relations. And in this regard as well, the Ombudsman will be the meeting office at the end of, during the latter part of the year, and he will bring in that and also with the international relations aspect. So without further ado, Dr. Ardern.
Okay, thank you so very much. Good morning. As the highlight of this press conference this morning is the year report 2016. The year report 2016 differs a little from the previous year report because, as Mr. Duckens indicated, this is my last term, so this will be my last year report as well. As such, I included in the year report 2016 some extra features. As a new organization, we established the institution step by step. One of the aspects that we never reported on in our year report is our recommendations. And as such, there is a new chapter in this report after complaint handling, covering the recommendations. We have included in this report the recommendations from 2013, the statistics, the type of recommendations, etc., etc. This chapter is a new chapter and is in fact a pretty large chapter, which makes this report a little heavier than the previous ones. As this is my last year report, I also introduced a chapter on an overview per ministry. While normally I discuss the complaints handled per ministry and give statistics, I compiled the main challenges of the various ministries in this report. Then the chapter of Constitutional Court, which is a regular chapter, this year that chapter is also a little larger because, as we all know, that on July 7, 2016, the Constitutional Court squashed a law which I brought forward for review in its entirety. So the content and the reasons for presenting that law to the Constitutional Court are outlined in the year report. It's very important. And last but not least, a new chapter in this report is the preliminary findings of an external, operational and financial audit. As indicated, the institution was established according to a strategic plan, a 10-year strategic plan. While my term of office is 7 years, I decided to do a strategic plan for 10 years because I did not want the next ombudsman to start reinventing the wheel all over. The person have to hit the ground running, and as such, the strategic plan is there for continuation. In the strategic plan, we have that in 2016 a general analysis, a meta-analysis will be done of the institution. As such, at the end of 2016, we commissioned an operational audit and a financial audit by a third party. How did we go about it? We invited 3 accountant offices to bid on term of references, and we selected one of them. While the operational and the financial audit are still ongoing, I thought it was fitting to include some of the preliminary findings in my year report 2016. In the course of this month, the reports will be finalized, and of course, as soon as they are finalized, we will present it to the media, the findings. Then the second point on the agenda are the private entities with public authority. As you know, we have published a list of about 21 private entities with public authorities, which we call the so-called ZBO, zelfstandige bestuursorganen. This issue has been an issue of discussion for many years. However, before I demit office, I thought it was important to at least publish a first list. My first case pertaining to a private entity with public authority, a ZBO, was a systemic investigation of Cadastre. We know that there was much ado about it. Cadastre did not want to recognize the authority of the Ombudsman to do an investigation because they consider themselves a private entity. However, after much research and brainstorming on the topic, this list for Sint Maarten was compiled. I used 3 criteria for this. The first criteria was the law. For example, Cadastre, in the law, it is stated, in fact, that they are a ZBO. So that discussion was a mute discussion at the time. However, as you may recall, they have threatened to take the Ombudsman to court over it. I said, made my day, but it never reached so far. Having said that, let me add to that, and for especially as I talk about the list of the ZBO, even though it was not a private entity with public authority, it was a minister plenipotentiary of Curaçao in The Hague 2 years ago. Also thought it was necessary to take the Ombudsman of Curaçao to court, and there the court specifically established that nobody can take the Ombudsman to court because the Ombudsman is a High Council of State and you cannot sue the Ombudsman. So if you want to sue the Ombudsman, you have to sue the country. And I think this is important for the people on the list of the ZBO because I must say, most ZBOs cooperated. We had sessions with them before publishing the list, but there were about 2 entities that thought, well, the Ombudsman, you have no authority. They are still on the list, so maybe they might want to get the opinion of the court in due time, but I can from now refer them to that case to save them, the effort. The second criteria that we use, apart from the law establishing that entity, is the public interest, the impact such an entity has on the public. I use, for example, the school boards. The school boards, why they are a private entity, foundations, the impact that they have on the community is large. So is, for example, Sint Maarten Housing Foundation, yes, and some other entities on the list. A third criteria, where I can bring in the school boards as well, is funding, subsidy. If government pays for a service to the public, the school boards are 100% funded by government. That means the taxpayers' money is involved. That means the services that these entities offer have to be to the same standard of government. So accountability of these entities is the same like government. We have one rule after the whole research: if it looks like government, it is government. And I find a lot of support in the research I did from Professor Scheltema. He is in fact considered the father of administrative law in the Netherlands, and he indicated that the law did not take the position of the Ombudsman sufficiently in consideration, because the Ombudsman is not the court. It is a safety net to guarantee the protection of the fundamental rights of the people. The third item for discussion in this press conference is the Karoa Conference, the 9th biennial conference of Karoa. This ties in with international networking. As I indicated in previous press conferences, after I have used a consultant at the onset of my tenure as Ombudsman to assist me, I realized that the position of Ombudsman is such a special position that even though a consultant might have studied law, knowing what ombudsmanship is something that you have to learn from other ombudsmen. As such, I, in a very early stage of my time as ombudsman, did expand my network. As such, from 2012 to I'm on the board of the International Ombudsman Institute. That's why my colleague, the Secretary General of the IOI, is with us today. And I networked with other ombudsmen in the region. Since 2015, I'm the Karoa president. As such, the conference, which was to be held in Trinidad and Tobago, last minute, it could not go ahead in Trinidad and Tobago, so we had to find a solution. There is where I said we are the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and it must have some weight. I called upon my colleague of the Netherlands, the National Ombudsman of the Netherlands, who is also the Ombudsman for the Best Islands, and I asked him if he could host it on Bonaire. It is a good way to introduce the National Ombudsman in the region, because of course you can imagine that some people say, hey, you're the Ombudsman of the Netherlands, what are you doing here? So it is a very good opportunity to introduce him in the region, and at the same time for Karoa, it's something very positive. I must say Karoa is a very poor organization financially, so our international network with IOI and now with the National Ombudsman is very important. Attached to the conference, we have a complaint handling training which is being financed 100% by IOI. The training is facilitated by Queen Margaret University of the UK. I can divulge how much it will cost, €24,000. We don't have that money. But by having that complaint handling training in the region, all our regional ombudsman institution can send representatives to follow that course against minimum cost. That means passage and stay. The Bureau Ombudsman, Sint Maarten, apart from myself and the Secretary General, we have our 2 complaint officers to attend. So international network is key. I must say, as I demit office, that that has been my strength to establish this institution for St. Martin, because once again I can say I wouldn't learn it from any consultant rather than one-on-one from my peers. Mr. Gunter Krauter, he will elaborate on the international relations.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I only would like to introduce briefly the International Ombudsman Institute. The IOI is the only global association of ombuds institutions, currently uniting 187 institutions from more than 100 countries worldwide. The IOI was established in 1978 in Canada, in Alberta, and since 2009 the headquarters has been located in Vienna, in Austria. It is an independent, non-governmental and non-political organization, and the purpose of the IOI is to contribute to respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. The IOI is a really international organization. Our president, for example, comes from Ireland, from Europe. The first vice president is from the United States, second vice president from Australia, and our treasurer from the Asian region, from Thailand. And the IOI is organized in 6 world regions. For example, Europe is a region and Asia is a region, and also Caribbean and South America region together is one part of the whole organization. And Dr. Nildo Adrian, we are very proud of this, is the president of this region. What are the main duties of the IOI? We offer our members training, regional subsidies, and we do research. And of course we also try to support ombuds institutions under pressure or even under threat. I think it's so important. Sometimes also the threat is more distinguished. Budget cut, for example, or personnel staff cut can be extremely problematic for the institution. And I'm convinced the restriction of ombuds institution means regression of democracy and of human rights. And so the role of the International Ombudsman Institute is so important in this regard. For the future, of course, we use the experience and the passion for the Ombuds family of Dr. Nildo Adrian for our organization. We have a special group of experts for keynote speaking when we have international conferences, maybe to solve difficult problems in the future, whatever. And we are really proud and happy to have this very distinguished member.
We know that over the past 6 years since we have established our new autonomous status, we had, and I will say it as I say it to the Council of Ministers, we had a lot of music chairs where ministers came and gone. And you can imagine, for a young country, it hampered continuity. While we had to put a lot of effort and are still putting a lot of effort to bringing about understanding what propriety in governance is, to promote good governance, if you have a change at the helm of a ministry every year, it makes it even more difficult. So, as you know, we have spent a lot of time. We have yearly sessions with civil servants, because we say the civil servants are the constant, yes? However, the civil servants have to be guided as well. So the ones at the helm have to, if the civil servants understand, but the one at the helm is not completely up to par, you can imagine that brings some challenges. Another challenge that we have, and I reported as a recommendation, a general recommendation in my year report, is administrative organization. Yeah, adequate administration organization. Because you can imagine if a ministry, if a department is not properly organized, it brings a lot of challenges pertaining to propriety. You are familiar with the standards of proper conduct that we have developed. They match international standards of good governance, of propriety. Take adequate organization of services. If a citizen file a request or a letter with a government department, it starts with acknowledging receipt of that letter. If that is not done, and that letter doesn't have a number that you can trace, if the person doesn't get a response to the letter, he goes back to the department. I submitted a letter 2 weeks ago, and I didn't hear anything. The civil servant will ask, okay, when did you deliver it? 2 weeks ago, that and that date. Who you did deliver it to? To so and so. No. If that letter had a number, you don't have to ask the person when and how. You can go and trace it by number. Yeah? So that means the citizen has this situation come back. No, we can't find it nowhere. In the other circumstances, well, it went to the next department. So, adequate organization of services starts with these basic things. Because by not having it properly organized, that means promptness in following up is jeopardized. Tracing it, the letter, is jeopardized. So that's why we see that sometimes it takes weeks or months to get a response. And these are the type of challenges. So overall, I will say all the different challenges can be compiled in one major issue. Ministries, organize your departments properly, yeah? Because adequate organization of services is key to many aspects of good governance. That based on the fact that I established the institution based on a strategic plan, we have been evaluating yearly. For example, some things that we do every year in the month of October, November, evaluate the year, and I present a vision, a personal vision for the next year. That's why you've seen that each one of our reports have a name. And the name, most of the time, is attached to the vision of that year. For example, last year we had Gearing Towards Excellence. This year we continue with it. What is my top priority? It is tied to the operational and financial audit that I have commissioned. The reports are due to be presented in the course of this month. I've seen the drafts already. And part of the term of reference was recommendations. And I hope that between June and October that I have sufficient time to follow up on the recommendations that I will get out of those audits. That is my priority, that I can really say, this is the report, this is the foundation, continue to build on it.
There's one question, Doctor. Are you being assisted by government with any problems you have? Do they give you a lot of runaround? Because I know your function is very precise.
If government assists, maybe you can be a little more specific. How assist?
Assist in any problems you have. For example, if there's a complaint that a civil servant might bring to you, do you have problems with government assisting you getting this?
Okay, responding. I think, let me say there first, as Hunter outlined, very first and foremost of the institution is, an ombudsman institution is independent. Yeah? And in fact, we are assisting Parliament in their supervisory role. Yeah? So, the assistance that we need from government is compliance with our investigation. Yes, I have had to bring to the attention of government on more than one occasion, and now we have it standard in our reports, Article 19 of the National Ordinance on Ombudsman, which state that all civil servant government is obligated by law to cooperate with the investigations of the Ombudsman. The law even provides, if government believes that information requested by the Ombudsman is privileged information, the Ombudsman can overrule that. So I have a standard agreement with government. For example, if you mentioned a civil servant comes and there is an advice about that situation that went to the minister, but there is no decision about the advice yet. If a department wants to say, well, it's an advice, so it's a privileged document, I say no, I overrule that. I want it because I want to make sure that indeed advice was provided. Yeah, because you can tell me, yes, it's in the pipeline, I gave her advice, yes? No, send me the advice. But I will not share that advice with the complainant, yeah? Because advice is not something that a complainant can derive any direct rights from. But I want to make sure that indeed the department had made the advice, yeah? So yes, there are some challenges in that area sometimes. I have over the years, and this is not public, but yes, I'm demitting office, and I can divulge that. I have had ministers, I have summoned ministers to my office to discuss certain structural issues in their ministry. And as I said, we are in the phase now that we are trying to follow up on the recommendations to really see how have they been implemented.